Okay, that should be working now. That's... Alright, can you guys hear me now? Hopefully that should be working. I put the wrong stream key in. Now is it working? Audio is okay, video is okay. Okay, perfect, cool, thanks. Welcome everyone. It is 2:50 AM, so sorry if I'm a little bit tired. But I thought I'd do this now because I've been meaning to do a stream for several weeks. I mean, I think I did my last one in May, and I said I'd hope I do one next weekend, and I never ended up doing it. So we'll do this now. Let me just check this because for some reason when I try to check the, I'll do it on my phone instead. It's OBS is being really weird. But I'll answer your questions while I wait for more people to get in. What do you think the Russians will do after fully taking Donbass region? Will they keep advancing further, or will they try to stop and force Ukraine to negotiate with Russia? I think it really depends on if they take Donbass before the war ends. Because obviously, I mean, they're pushing in other areas of Ukraine right now. They're pushing in Sumy, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk. So, should announce true. I was about to do that. I always forget to do that. I just having to load up the stream on my phone because for some reason, when I try to check the live chat on my computer, it overlays with the stream. Oh, god damn it. Let me try this. Yeah, I will announce it on the Telegram. Okay. Yeah, I'll do it on Twitter too. Let me just load this up on my phone so I can actually see how many people are in here. And also post it on my Twitter. Just give me like 1 minute. Let me just open this again. Oh, you can hear me. Cool, cool, cool. Where did you take involved Russian strikes? I live in southern Ukraine and we don't even hear air alarms sometimes when ground strikes. Odessa, I'm assuming you mean Odessa. Odessa's weird with air alarms. 126 in here. Damn, I think it's a new record. Odessa's weird with the air raid alerts because I mean I've seen several times when there've been air raid alerts after the strikes. I saw this happen with Kherson recently too, where basically they literally, I think it was like 8 different Garan strikes, and then they activate the air raid alerts. It was crazy. Um, yeah, so I mean, a lot of the time, I don't know if it's like a radar issue or if it's like a operator issue. If they've got like new trainees or something, it is kind of weird. Um, God damn it, this thing's dumb. I'm trying to. Oh, it's fine. I won't bother with Twitter. I've already posted 5 minutes. Um, yeah, it does depend. It does vary a lot. I know in Kyiv they're a lot better sometimes, but I get it from a mix of open sources, radar channels on Telegram, my own sources who tell me some things, and just the general interpretation of events, some basic maths, speed, time, distance calculations, that sort of stuff. What is your opinion on possible mobilization in Russia? We already see it's kind of limited. As in, I remember there's some stuff in Penza. I made a post about it recently, or a reply to someone about it recently, where most of the mobilizations happening in Russian mobilizations happening in occupied parts of Ukraine. Um, that's if you mean forced mobilization. If you mean like a general call up of reserves, I think we will see that sometime either late this year or next year, depending on how well Russia is advancing. Specifically with Dobropilia, which I will talk about soon. So I think for the stream, what I'll do is I'll just do a general overview of the frontline sectors, cover the the main Uh, obviously the big ones which are developing: Dobropelia, Druzhkivka, Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, and the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the south, which looks like it's mostly stalled. Um, and yeah, obviously the northern areas where Russia is beginning to push across the border and expand, kind of overextend Ukraine, force them to pull additional forces away from Donbass, which they've been doing for the last couple of years since the Vovchansk operation. Do you think the KH-31Ps have been getting used in recent times have had any effect, especially because we've been seeing delayed air raid warnings? I expect so. I mean, as everyone knows, Russia's terrible with propaganda videos. They rarely post videos of their actual missile strikes. I mean, name me one time when they posted a drone footage of a Kar 101 strike on Kiev, You don't really see that. So I think it's certainly possible. But with those 31P strikes, I think a lot of it just serves to decrease Ukraine's ability to detect the incoming cruise missiles or drones as they come to attack Odessa, for example, because they have to shut off the radars to prevent them to prevent them from being detected by the anti-radar missiles. Um, yeah, I'll answer questions as I go. I obviously can't get to all of them. There's 200 people in here, so I'll do my best. But I think I'll go south to north this time, because last time I did north to south. So let's go to Zaporizhia, where I made an update on this a couple hours ago on my Twitter and Telegram. So hopefully, let me just check you guys can see the pen lines. Okay, good, you can. So with Zaporizhia, specifically Stepnohursk, sorry if I butcher some of the pronunciations, by the way. Russians have been resuming their infiltrations into Primorskaya. With this area, there's essentially a large line of settlements which run from Kamyanskaya, in fact, even kind of down to Vasilivka, all the way out to Primorskaya. You got the small reservoir which is dried up by now, and then all the way up to Zaporizhia city. So I and others have been warning for some time now that this area could be very dangerous for Ukraine if Russia were to get a foothold in Malokatronivka, because with the war of drones, small groups of DRGs, infiltrators, whatever you call them, can move for very long distances, as we've seen in the Pokrovsky direction, with Russian infiltrators being spotted up to 14 kilometers from the closest Russian-controlled territory, and that's without any continuous unbroken chains of built-up areas. Map name, I usually link it in all my posts, and it will be in my Twitter and Telegram bio. Why is Russia not attacking bridges across the Dnieper? I see this question probably every day now. If you've seen the strikes on Zatoka Bridge in Odessa Oblast, you will know why. These bridges, Soviet-made, incredibly strong. You would need dozens and dozens of cruise missiles to destroy one bridge, and they're just better off going after military-industrial facilities. Anyway, what was I saying? So, with this area, you've got a long, continuous, practically unbroken chain of settlements all the way up into Zaporizhia city. I believe that's one of the reasons why Ukraine counterattacked here and pushed Russia away from Malokatronivka, where DRGs were operating for a period of time. And just recently they've begun doing a similar tactic, moving in small groups of infantry up through the built-up areas of Plavny, across this dam, and into the southern parts of Primorsky along Pokrovska Street. And this appears to be a coordinated operation aimed at cutting off the Ukrainian groupings in Plavny, which are situated around this area and are attempting to attack towards Kamyanskaya along the highway and previously entrenched in these streets here, which Russia bombed with some glide bombs. We can't donate to you, can you, AMK? I don't have it set up on YouTube because I need like the YouTube partnership program, which I have not reached eligibility for because I don't really focus on YouTube, but I have a Buy Me a Coffee page in my Telegram bio. But at the same time with this, what we're seeing is Russia, after repelling the Ukrainian assaults on the high-rise micro-district in the southern part of Stepnohursk, have begun attacks along, I believe this is Ahrana Street, using, once again, the cover of the built-up areas to as cover against Ukrainian drones and artillery, and are attempting to seize this highway overpass. I forget what it's called. This highway overpass here, which Ukraine, it's the main staging ground for Ukrainian operations towards Kamyanskaya. If they are able to take this highway overpass, this entire grouping of Ukrainian forces in the Plavny area will be at significant risk of encirclement, um, essentially under operational encirclement, and will be forced to withdraw unless Ukraine can unblock it. But for now, that's just hypotheticals. Russia is attacking this area. We don't know if they've succeeded, but it can be said for certain that Ukraine's attacks a couple of weeks ago on this high-rise micro-district were unsuccessful. Additionally, Russia has also reactivated their assault operations east of Stepnohursk, where they appear to be attempting to reform a right flank to the town. So, for reference, we've got the town over here. What we've been seeing them trying to do is infiltrate up to the solar farm up here and up to these tree lines northeast of Stepnohursk, trying to outflank it and eventually overextend and cut off the Ukrainians entrenched in these strong points west and northwest of Stepovia. So for now, these are infiltrations. There's no signs of consolidation as Ukraine still holds some presence in these tactical heights south of this area. Your pronunciation of the Ukrainian place names is really good. I would hope so too. It's better than a lot of people's, but it's nowhere near as good as I'd like it to be, as I'm not a native speaker of Ukrainian or Russian. As you can see, they've advanced in this area in Kamyanskia, moving along these tree lines and gullies, and are also conducting multi-vector assaults on the Ukrainian strong points west of Stepnohursk, trying to cut them off and force them to withdraw northwards towards Lukyanivskia. But simultaneously, they are attacking north of Melishevaki, which Deep State has not shown on their map at all, as expected, despite showing all the Ukrainian advances. So they have managed to entrench along the southern part of this gully, which runs along here. The tactical heights are south of it and north of it. They've entrenched along the southern bank and are now infiltrating north towards Pavlivka and throughout the tree lines around the settlement towards Novoyakovlivka, which you may remember Russia entered around 3 or 4 months ago, maybe a little longer ago, before being pushed back. So that's kind of the general situation here. Russia appears to be carrying out a coordinated series of counterattacks aimed at re-establishing control over areas they lost from the Ukrainian counterattacks in this direction, which have been ongoing for the past several months, in coordination with their counteroffensive further east, which I will get to shortly. Additionally, this kind of all feeds into the Orikhiv sector, where Russia has been, as you know, carrying out extremely active attacks towards the city. So even in the west of the city, they've been reactivating their assault operations, clearing new tree line positions northeast of Sherbaki. And for the last month or so, there's been a slow, kind of meticulous advance along this highway, all the way up to the western outskirts of Novoandreevka. Over the last week, there's been heavy fighting ongoing for the forested areas just west of the village, as they attempt to enter it from multiple directions. The remaining Ukrainian holdouts in these tree lines west of the settlement were eventually cleared in recent weeks, and that has allowed Russia to attack these forests from the southwest as well. However, Ukrainian forces were able to kick out the Russians from the southern streets of Novoandreevka, forcing them back towards the Nestoryanka area and re-establishing full control over this village for the time being. However, Russia is making significant progress on the western flank of it and is pressuring Ukraine quite strongly under extremely heavy artillery and MLRS cover. Further east in the Orikhiv area, Russia has, as you know, intensified their assault operations significantly. About 2 weeks ago, I got information from the Ukrainian side about the Russian presence in these fields right here, north of Manatokmachka, and throughout this area here, as well as in the northern part of Manatokmachka, which at the time I hadn't seen anyone else report. Since then, this has kind of surfaced more in the information space. It's interesting to hear. It's interesting to. I cannot read. it's interesting. Will we see a military build up on the border near Chernihiv? I mean, I expect there probably already is one, and I do think we'll see cross-border operations in that area soon. Um, anyway, what was I saying? So with this area, Russia has been able to make some recent advances northwest of Belarusia, pushing through these tree lines. This is confirmed by Ukrainian sources, not even Russian sources, and are also advancing west of Sharivne, infiltrating towards a series of Ukrainian strong points, which is situated along these tactical heights in this general area. I believe it's here. I can't remember exactly where they are. Obviously, they don't show up in Google Maps because this imagery is outdated. Um, but at the same time, Russia is also infiltrating through the northern part of Malotokmachka and up through these fields, supporting the attacks from the east, which are the main thrust being made right now. And at the same time, Russia has opened up a new front towards Orikhiv itself, moving through Novodanilivka and up into the southeastern part of Orikhiv. And over the last 2-ish weeks on Sentinel-2 satellite imagery, I've observed a shifting of Russian artillery shelling and MLRS shelling from this general area, then to this area, and now it's mainly focused on this area, which kind of illustrates Russia's slow kind of push northwest towards the center of the city. Looks like Russia decided to take Zaporizhia. I think they would have been okay with trading for Donbass. It's all part of the same claims Russia's made. I don't think Russia's going to stop the war until they are able to obtain those 4 regions, including Kherson. I think it's just kind of a guarantee that they feel they must have for negotiations to go forward, which obviously puts Ukraine in a difficult position. Additionally, with Novodanilivka, there's still fighting ongoing for the village, despite what many sources claim. I saw Rybar made a post the other day saying that Russia and Ukraine are carrying out kind of hit-and-run style attacks, almost like guerrilla warfare, inside the village. So there's a large grey zone still, with no side maintaining significant control over most parts of the settlement. However, Russia is able to increase their presence of infantry in the areas between Malotokmachka and Orikhiv, and are likely attempting to transform these forests into a staging ground for eventual assaults on Orikhiv itself in order to accumulate in the city streets, which is obviously useful to take cover from drones and artillery. As I've always said with this war, the best thing the soldier can do is not be spotted, because as soon as you're spotted by a drone, if you don't change your position and get out of its detection, you're essentially done for. Considering how dense FPV drones have become from both sides. When do you think Russia will win, if ever? I do think they'll win eventually, just because in a war of attrition, the side who can deal more attrition relative to their size will eventually win, unless something radical changes. But considering current trends, I mean, there'll be any time in the next few years. I mean, who knows? Could be 2030, could be 2035, could be next year, could be next week. I mean, it's not really any way to know. But I think it is pretty clear who is eventually going to come out on top in this war. Although the format of that win will not be clear, obviously. There could be peace negotiations beforehand. Could you turn chat off screen? Losing IQ. I'll make it a little bit smaller. How about that? There you go. Okay, further northeast, let's go to the Omelnik direction. So, recently I made a post about Russian advances towards Vozdivzhivka, Rivne, Dolinka, and Kopani from the Verkhnya Tursa area. A lot of those advances were reversed with quick Ukrainian counterattacks. Seems Ukraine has still maintained some of their assault forces in this sector, who were deployed here in February for their counterattacks towards the Haicha River. And as a result, they were able to clear some of the tree lines east of Dolinka, Kopani, and Rivne, and link up with some of the blocked Ukrainian formations in the strong points north of Verkhnya Tursa, and they even managed to recapture part of Verkhnya Tursa itself. Recently, Russia has continued their assault operations, moving west of Herkir, west from Verkhnya Tursa, and also into the Vozdivzhivka area, without any confirmed successes yet. But that's just because these are very new changes occurring, so it takes time to confirm the extent of advances. Okay, Odessa is hit by a rocket usually twice per week. I'd say it's a little bit more than that over the last couple months. Probably more like, I mean, Odessa Oblast would probably be at least 10 per day at this point. depending on the intensity of the attacks. So further east, let's go to this sector. So for the last however many months, there's been a real back and forth in this area after Ukraine launched their counterattacks. Um, there's a large gray zone which remains east of the Haicha River, between the Haicha and the Yancha River on the tactical heights here. So while Ukraine has been carrying out assault operations in the Solodka area, even gaining a foothold east of the village, and towards Privilny and Ispinivka along the western bank of the Yancha River, Russia has not stopped their attacks through the grey zone, moving up towards Radisne, Novozaporizhia, and through the Dobropelia area, and also north towards the regional border between Zaporizhia and Dnipropetrovsk oblasts. Ukraine has been forced to constantly deploy small assault groups in the sector in order to prevent the Russians from achieving another breakthrough towards Pokrovsk, which is obviously preventing them from making significant advances elsewhere in the sector, as they're constantly having to maintain a close eye on what would usually be their tactical rear, but at this point is the front line or the infiltration zone, as many put it. Further east, Ukrainian forces are still counterattacking this area. I recently removed the gains and put them in the blue zone, so they're not really visible here, but I can kind of remember where they were. So Ukrainian forces are infiltrating wrong color. Ukrainian forces are infiltrating Zaporizhzhia, attacking south through Berezovia, and in the Kalinivsky area towards Novomykolaivka, and also towards Novohiohivka and Komishuvaka. In turn, Russia is also attacking, moving towards Verbovia from attempting to outflank Kalinivsky from the west and east. Some assault groups are even detected near Stepovia, and additionally, more recently, some assault groups managed to penetrate north of Verbovia and Vishneve in the direction of Novoalexandrivka. So this is obviously preventing Ukraine from making any meaningful progress and establishing full control over the regional borders of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, which run something like this, which would obviously be a massive PR victory for them, as to get aid from the west, often they have to do these kind of counterattacks to prove that they're able to make gains. And I mean, you can only imagine the headlines which would come from it. You know, Ukraine fully liberates Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, Russia's goals of advancing beyond Donbass are completely crushed. That sort of thing. You'd see that everywhere in Western media, similar but on a smaller scale to Chernihiv and Sumy Oblasts in 2022. 1 a.m. How much sleep is enough for you? It is 3:13 a.m. for me, not 1 a.m. I think it's 1 a.m. in Australia. Okay. So I mean, you know, one thing I like to point out to people quite often is the people in this chat, most of you probably follow this war quite closely, as you follow me on Telegram and Twitter. The vast majority, 99.99% of people in the world, do not follow this war closely. They are casual observers who only see updates through headlines or brief news reports and mainstream media, or maybe their favorite YouTuber, Denis Davidov, or someone like that. You know, maybe there's only a couple million people in the world, maybe even less, who follow this war very closely. So it's very easy for mainstream media to kind of keep a monopoly on this, unlike with the Israel-Iran situation. So propaganda like this, whether it's from Russian flag planting operations to Ukrainian claims of fully liberating Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, isn't meant to fool analysts or close people who follow the war closely. Those sorts of claims are made for casual observers, random people, your parents, you know, just anyone who doesn't follow the war closely, which is almost everyone, especially considering the war's been going on for so long and not as many people follow it as closely as they used to. And that's all it has to fool. It doesn't have to fool people like us, because in the end, the mainstream media has a monopoly. So, you know, if they want to cherry pick Ukrainian advances from Russian advances, or only show certain changes and victories, it will work because of the monopoly they have. So it doesn't really matter how ridiculous the claims may seem to you or I, because the general public doesn't view the war through the same lens we do. What do you suppose the impact will have on Russia's Starlink alternative? Will we see another big offensive once it is fully operational? We don't really see big offensives in this war. That's a common myth people say. I like to say we've been in the same offensive since October 10th, 2023, when Russia launched their mechanized assaults on Avdiivka. So I don't think there'll be any big offensive, just the general increase in the rate of attrition Russia can deal to Ukraine, which is already very large. In the Komarla region, there's not too much else to report. There's kind of been a media silence from Komarla lately, probably on purpose from both sides. Ukraine for OPSEC purposes, Russia for informational purposes, as we saw with the Pokrovsky offensive. However, recently Ukrainian forces were spotted in the village of Zaporizhia, reportedly Ukrainian drone operator positions, although I highly doubt this personally. For now, I've put it in the grey zone. North of the Volga River, Ukrainian forces are attempting to advance towards the village of Dachnia, which is one of the last areas of Dnipropetrovsk Oblast fully under, solidly under Russian control. They are advancing north from Novopavlivka, moving through the tree lines, infiltrating the village of Filia after capturing the rest of the forests, and moving through Zaporizhia towards the village from the south. Theoretically, if they capture Zaporizhia, they could attack it from the south like this, and the village would be able to be attacked from multiple directions, and it would force a Russian withdrawal from this part of east of Filia. Although that's just hypothetical, Russia may be able to stop the attacks, and I don't personally believe Ukraine will continue these counterattacks for much longer, considering Skala and other Ukrainian assault groups are slowly not being disbanded but shrunk in size and sent to other units. Skala's being sent to Azov. I can't remember where the 1st Assault Regiment is going, or the 225th, sorry. But with the new defense minister, they're doing a bunch of reforms of Syrskyi's personal assault army. I hear there's a lot of misreporting done from the Ukrainian side. In your opinion, how much misinformation have you attributed to Russia? I mean, as always, with this sort of stuff, it's pretty much 50-50 between Ukraine and Russia. But obviously, the winning side doesn't have to do as much propaganda because they, a lot of their, what would be propaganda is just truth or not far from the truth. I know Willie OEM, I don't know if he coined this phrase, but someone did, and I like it quite a lot. The winning side tends to the winning side tends to exaggerate claims, whereas the losing side, or the side with the lower hand, tends to fabricate. And in the case of Ukrainian advances, we generally see Russia fabricate their successes by doing the flagging operations, while Ukraine exaggerates their successes through deep state updates or their own flagging operations. Same with Donbass, where Russia is advancing, Ukraine will fabricate news, Russia will exaggerate. Okay, let's go north to this area, then we'll go to Dobropelia. So Novoperorodne, I updated today that Russia re-established control over the western part of the town. They're also pushing a little bit further northeast towards Serhiivka, along this forested gully under heavy artillery cover, and also along this gully using the tree lines as cover from drones as usual, infiltrating in very small groups of soldiers. They've been struggling to make much advances here in this area for a while now, but it remains to be seen the levels of success they will have from these new attempts. More success, however, has been made northeast of Serhiivka, where recently Russia cleared out the salient, which was held by Ukrainian forces west of Hrishne for some time. And as such, they're now pushing along the highway, attempting to capture the Ukrainian strong points here, which would eventually, potentially, allow them to outflank Serhiivka from the north, moving along these tactical heights just north of the railway line. So, additionally, near the Hryshinka River, which runs from Hrishne all the way up to the border, regional border, Russia has continued their attacks on both banks of the river, moving up these forested gullies towards the anti-tank ditch, which runs along this tree line, and have also been attacking through Merne towards Huleve, but the attacks along the northern bank have seen less successes in recent weeks. Dobropelia, obviously, probably one of the biggest developments over the last couple of weeks. I mean, as with a lot of this stuff, like rapidly changing areas of the front line, there will be a lot of misinformation, there'll be a lot of exaggerations, and a lot of stuff which remains to be seen due to the fog of war. So naturally, I have large grey zones in these areas. I haven't mapped a lot of the areas under Russian control. I do believe my map is likely behind in this area, but I just don't know in what areas or by how much. Um, so once the fog of war kind of clears, I will make further changes, but I don't want to make I don't want to map advances in areas where they haven't actually occurred. But for now, the situation does look very bad for Ukraine. The defenses are somewhat crumbling. There's a Ukrainian drone operator who made a post today calling out Deep State for not making changes to their map. I believe Deep State's Frontline still runs something like this. It's kind of ridiculous. Um, but recently they have intensified their infiltrations from the Svitli area towards Vodyanskaya, through Chernihievka, through Dobropilia, and even north towards the southern outskirts of Dobropilia city. Fightings continue for the western part of Beletskaya. Infiltrations are taking place through Shevchenko, north of Shevchenko, towards Matyashevye, towards Novohreshene, through the Belitska mine, west through the fields towards the north of Chernihievka, and also in the fields west of Belitska as well. So very heavy fighting in all of these areas, and overall it does look very bad for Ukraine, and I do think this is a direct consequence of the counterattacks in the south. The only counterattacks, in my opinion, which makes sense as of August, is the Liman counterattacks, which I'll get to soon, and I'll explain why that is. In the Dobropilia, like closer to Dobropilia itself, Russia has been able to make some significant progress, arguably even, actually I wouldn't say more important, but almost as important as the areas to the south. They have pushed west of Novy Donbass, capturing a lot of the fields in this area, moving towards the eastern outskirts of Dobropilia in small groups. They established a foothold in Hanivka and are infiltrating throughout the eastern and northeastern parts of Dobropilia, operating along the main logistical routes, which are this one and this one, ambushing Ukrainian reinforcements. As of now, the only kind of stable, somewhat stable supply route into Dobropilia is this road running through Svetohorivka. So very dangerous situation for Ukraine right now. There's fighting taking place in a lot of parts of Dobropilia, and the Russian infiltrators are right on the edge of the city centre. Additionally, another area which has not been had much attention recently is the former Dobropilia salient, where Russia made their breakthrough around a year ago. Russia's been able to recapture the villages of Vilnia and have pushed north up the tactical heights, capturing Stepie and infiltrating up to the southern outskirts of Rubizhne. Additionally, they have pushed along the tactical heights, infiltrating in small groups up to the outskirts of Zloty Kolodyaz, and it's this area precisely where the New Donbass line runs through south of Zloty Kolodyaz and approximately north of Dobropilia. This is very approximate. Haven't memorized the exact location of it. Another Russian breach in the New Donbass line, which is essentially a multi-layered defensive line of a bunch of anti-tank ditches, barbed wire, dragon's teeth, etc. Another breach in this area will be very bad for Ukraine because this is designed to hold back Russian advances for as long as possible while using as little manpower to hold it as possible. Basically a giant drone kill zone that Russia has to cross. Also, near Sharkova, Russia has made some additional progress clearing some of the Ukrainian strong points northwest of the village in this area, and have also infiltrated up to the southern edge of Kucherev Yar. Another area which has been given quite a bit of attention recently is the Duruzhkivka direction. Recently, Russian infiltrators were spotted in Novomykolaivka, although according to unconfirmed reports they were eventually cleared out. Russian forces are also infiltrating up to the outskirts of Novohrehorivka and the trench fortifications west of the settlement, crossing I believe it's the Hruski River, after capturing the chain of settlements through Toretske to Novopavlivka. Additionally, they're pushing west towards the Nikolai Pilia salient through the forested gullies and are attempting to establish themselves along the western edge of this gully along here. But first, obviously, they'll have to take the rest of these tactical heights to the west. Audio's too low. Is that better now? Usually with these streams, some people have audio issues, some people don't. I don't know why. It might be your YouTube settings. Um, okay, Dobropilia area. Russia has established control over Stepanivka, that's from a few weeks ago. Same with Dobrobalka. Also captured Rakishne and have established themselves along the southern edge of this gully. Over the last couple of weeks, Russia's been mainly focused on establishing themselves in Mykolaipilia, so they've captured most of the tree lines west of Konstantinivka and are pushing across the dams along the reservoirs and entering Mykolaipilia and the tree lines north of the village, while Ukrainian forces have been attempting to clear earlier Russian infiltrations into these gullies. Um, and in Konstantinivka, heavy fighting persists. Russia consolidated in the main part of the city and are attempting to clear the remaining Ukrainian positions in the grey zones on the outskirts. A lot of intermingled positions in this area. Ukraine periodically sends small groups of soldiers in twos and threes along the railway line and through the Novoselivka district, which prevents me from putting in a red zone just because Ukraine seems so focused on extending the battle for Konstantinivka in the informational space. However, heavy fighting does continue in this area, and Russia has been able to establish a consistent frequency of infiltrations into the southwestern part of Alexeyevo-Druzhkivka. Let's see, in Chasiv Yar area, after capturing the rest of the city, Russia has intensified their attacks through Mykolaiivka towards Podilsky and Chevonia, which is partially cut off, and are also infiltrating from the newly captured Molocharka towards the village of Stinky and up towards Popasne. Attacks are also taking place in the north towards this section of the railway line, and also south from Novodmitrievka area. Infiltrations are also occurring towards Izhevka, and a while ago there were infiltrations recorded in the southeastern, eastern part of Alexeyevo-Druzhkivka. Okay, let's go to the... Let's skip forward to Kramatorsk. There's not really many updates from here. So recently Russia has continued their assault operations, offensive operations towards Kramatorsk and Slovyansk, as has been stated by numerous different people. After establishing control over Tikhonivka and Malinivka, Russia has infiltrated Vasyutynskaya, and with DRGs now operating in Pusha-Mariivka, attacks are taking place from both settlements moving along the gullies. Additionally, advances were made to the south northwest of Novomarkova, although these are likely a couple of weeks old. In the Yurkivka area, Russia established control over that village and are attacking along the highway. There's a number of Ukrainian strongpoints in this area along the highway, which they're attempting to take under their control by attacking directly from the highway head-on, but also infiltrating through the tactical heights north of Zapovedne towards this forest. There's been no reports of fighting inside Zapovedne itself, and Russia is still heavily shelling the settlement. However, it is expected that fighting will begin for Zapovedne soon. Additionally, the last Ukrainian holdouts in Vrye Oleksandrivka were forced to withdraw, allowing for Russia to push even west of the town into the forested gullies in this area, which they are now accumulating in to attack towards Oryhuvatska and the southern approaches to Mykolaiivka, with one of the pumping stations of the Siversky Donetsk Donbass Canal. Attacks are also taking place from Yurkivka along the canal towards the southern edge of Oryhuvatska, which is now at least partially in the grey zone. Additionally, fighting is taking place in the Mykolaiivka area. Over the last week, Russia has intensified their infiltrations after capturing I believe it's the Dolvha forest north of Vrye Oleksandrivka, and are using this to into the forests south of Mykolaiivka and the easternmost high-rise buildings. According to local Ukrainian channels, Russian DRGs were spotted in several different parts of Mykolaiivka, including the City Central Hospital. Some of these high-rise buildings are here, this high-rise building here, some of these ones here, and throughout this area in here, and the Slovyansk thermal power plant. For now, these are apparently mostly DRGs, with some assault groups on the eastern outskirts, so I've only put part of it in the grey zone, and Ukraine reportedly cleared all of the DRGs from the area of the Slovyansk thermal power plant. However, because of the very thick forested areas, throughout the outskirts of Mykolaiivka and towards Piskunivka and Starodubivka. Russia has very optimal routes for infiltrations, which are even taking place through Ukrainian-controlled territory towards Mykolaiivka. All of these forests here very good for cover against Ukrainian drones, so it's a very chaotic situation. Both sides hold overlapping and intermingled positions. However, Russia is still bombing Mykolaiivka with carb glide bombs and the Slobyansk thermal power plant. Yesterday they bombed it, so it is known that most of the city is under solid Ukrainian control for the time being. Piskunivka, they captured part of the village, likely all of it, but I haven't received confirmation of that. And they also consolidated along the southern bank of the Seversky Donetsk River. Now for Liman, Ukrainian forces have cleared some of the forests south of Dubrova. Russia's entrenched in the northern part of Dubrova, and have also gained a foothold in the southern part of Liman. Ukrainian forces cleared some of the earlier Russian infiltrations south of Liman and in the area of the city centre. In Liman itself, the northern part of Liman, Ukraine cleared some of the positions here, while Russian forces expanded their zone of control slightly in the Masyukivka district, and are also actively infiltrating the northern and northeastern parts of the city. Ukrainian counterattacks continue north of Liman in the Russian salient. They were able to recapture the rest of Stavki and are attempting to infiltrate these forested areas. Earlier Ukrainian infiltrations to the Kolodyazy area were repelled by Russian forces, with them re-establishing control over one of the tree lines. And in the Novoselivka areas and the westernmost part of the salient, Russian forces withdrew from a number of positions to avoid being encircled, including most of the Svyatihora National Park near Yarova. Ukrainian forces also improved their positions in Novoselivka and gained a foothold in the southern outskirts of Shandry-Holova, which Russia is bombing with carb glide bombs, and are also actively attacking through the area of Novy towards Kolodyazy, along the tributaries of the Zhiribets River. And Lipovye, they're attacking towards Zelenodolnya following earlier unsuccessful counterattacks. Russia, on the other hand, has cleared a number of positions north of Shandry-Holova, slightly improving the position for their garrison west of the Nechirez River in this area here. These are old updates, I won't bother going over them. Kupiansk, Russia has cleared a lot of the Ukrainian holdouts in the Petropavlivka area and expanded their zone of control in Novosyonovye and Kivsharivka. A large grey zone remains in Kupiansk-Ruslovy, where Russia is attempting to clear the rest of the town. Same goes for Podoly and Kuchilivka. In Kupiansk itself, I made a post on this last week, I believe, with Russia capturing new positions in the city centre and infiltrating towards the Uvelny micro-district. Ukraine has recaptured the city railway station and is moving towards the city centre and a city central hospital. However, renewed Russian infiltrations from the eastern bank of the river to the western bank have prevented them from making any new successful advances. Ukraine was able to clear new positions in the northwestern districts, including the rest of this high-rise district, I forget what this one's called, and the area of the bakery and the stadium. Russian forces are actively counterattacking in all of the aforementioned areas, however. Let's move north. There's pretty much no new developments from this area of Kharkiv Oblast. However, in the northeastern corner of Kharkiv Oblast, Russia has intensified their attacks. They were able to enter Zakharivka and Ivanivka a while ago, capturing some of the fields northwest of the villages and infiltrating Vasilievka. They also captured Anishinya and have entered Vilhovatka and Vodyane, while some infiltrators have entered Dovzhanka and are approaching Chorny and Kupine, essentially blooming out from this initial breakthrough. They improved their positions west of Artillner and are simultaneously with the western flank seemingly attempting to cut off the Ukrainian groupings in the northeasternmost corner of Kharkiv Oblast, which I have been talking about for over a year now. This area is one of the most dangerous parts of the front line. Very difficult to get logistics in here. Essentially, all logistics run through Veliki Burluk and Prikolodny, which the first Russian DRGs are approaching from about 4 or 5 kilometers away. Very dangerous situation for Ukraine here. If they don't counterattack soon, they may have to withdraw from this entire area, which I believe is like 300 square kilometers. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think this area will fall in the next couple of months, almost 500 square kilometers, because I don't think Russia has the strength in this sector to really capitalize in these gains. Sorry, I can't speak. Billy Koldiaz is necessary, in my opinion, to take this area and cut it off, which Russia has not been able to capture yet and will likely take protracted battles to secure. Speaking of illegal yards, Russia has consolidated in some of the tree lines north of the town and are actively infiltrating the northwestern streets. They have also managed to clear the rest of Vilicha and Liman and are infiltrating towards Zemlyany Yar and Shestarivka, while Ukrainian forces counterattack in Semenivka. Recently, Russia cleared the forest north of Staritsia from earlier Ukrainian attacks and have begun infiltrating the eastern part of Staritsia, with some DRGs even managing to enter the large forest on the tactical heights south of the village. In the Kozacha-Lopan area, Russia has improved their positions in the town, both in the eastern and western parts, secured this section of the border, and are attacking through Kurdiivka towards Hoptiivka, and from the border checkpoint towards Hoptiivka as well. But over the last week, this area has kind of slowed down in its level advances. Will there be a Russian breakthrough to Pavlohrad after the fall of Dobropilia? No, there will not be. Well, Russia would need to reintroduce maneuver warfare for that, and the war is not on that stage, not with the current levels of attrition. Okay, let's go to the Sumy area. Russia re-established control over the rest of, not re-established, they established control over most of the rest of Ryazny and recaptured some positions along the railway line. Advances were made near Novodimitrievka and Taratutine, and they are continuing to fight for the area of Pokrovka. Low-intensity battles have continued in the Turia area, with Russia improving their positions along the international border, and Ukraine clearing out most of the earlier Russian infiltrations into the village. Basically nothing to add from this area. All that can be said is that Ukraine counterattacked in Kindrativka. The Russian offensive in Sumy, this section of Sumy Oblast, has largely stalled for the time being, likely part of a larger tactical regrouping. In the Haluhiv direction, Russia cleared part of the border area here and are infiltrating towards Maloslobitka and the Ulanova area. That's basically it for the front line changes. Nothing to add from Chernihiv or Kherson. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and I wanted to talk briefly on the missile strikes Russia has been doing and Ukraine's mid-range drone campaign. Will anyone reintroduce maneuver warfare? Kursk would be the counter example, where Russian border guards do not seem to be motivated. Russia will eventually, in my opinion, if peace negotiations don't occur beforehand, it would be a result of one side breaking due to the rate of attrition. What do you think will be the consequences of losing Dobropilia? Russia taking Dobropilia depends on when it is taken. If it is taken in the next few months, it would be a major stepping stone to forming a left flank to Kramatorsk. However, that would have to happen in tandem with attacks across the new Donbas line near Zoloty and also the clearing of the Mykolaipilia salient. It would also allow Russia to push west towards the, I don't remember what this river is called, Bik River, along the Dnipropetrovsk-Donetsk Oblast border, securing the rest of these tactical heights. The loss of it would be very, very big for Ukraine. It would suffer significant consequences. However, the effects of it may not be felt for several months afterwards. How much strength do both sides have in command Pokrovska direction? Depends on what the depth you mean. Like on the immediate front line, very low, because you can't really concentrate large amounts of manpower directly along the line of contact anymore due to the presence of drones. But Russia's strongest army is it the 9th Combined Arms Army? I can't remember which one's in this area, but that's technically their strongest one, although they have been struggling quite a bit recently. Russia obviously has more manpower because, I mean, kind of self-explanatory. Ukraine probably has a slight advantage in the Komar area, at least in the areas closer to the front line. What do you make of Ukrainian attempts attacking their patrols while neglecting other fronts like Dobropilia? Well, as I said before, it's informational, partly. Good headlines for Western media to get them more military aid. But also, it does alleviate the pressure to Orikhiv from the east, and that attack was carried out in conjunction with attacks in the Stepnohursk area to prevent Russia from doing a flanking maneuver. Because what you have to remember, the front line looked something like this before these counterattacks. It was, maybe something like this, very, very rough, but might have actually been more. To Orikhiv, that's a big threat because, I mean, tactical heights run east to west. Russia can advance parallel with them, and establishing themselves along the southern bank of the Konka River would put this highway from Zaporizhia under fire control, and this highway from Novomykolaiv would also be under physical control, theoretically, and the fall of Orikhiv would allow Russia to advance towards Zaporizhia. So it would be a very big development if that happened. So the counterattacks do have tactical purposes, but in my opinion, the tactical reasoning for that was largely diminished in April after the first part of the counterattacks, and then they launched the more recent ones, which don't make as much sense to me from like a military standpoint. Let's see, what other questions were there? Do you think Russia will capture all the land that's east of the Oskil River? I mean, eventually they will, obviously, but the main threat to Ukraine for this area here specifically, this area is obviously screwed, but this area here, the main threat has been alleviated for the time being because Russia can't place their artillery in the salient anymore because of the proximity to the front line, meaning the crossings over the Oskil River and the Izium area I really only have to worry about drones and MLRS for the time being, and carbs. So it has alleviated some of the pressure, and if Russia withdraws from the area west of the Nechirys River, this area will be further secured. However, the lack of bridges over the Oskil River is a concern for Ukraine. They have one at Oskil and a highway bridge near Borova, but eventually it will fall. There'll be no collapsing. Western money stop dialogue will begin. But when will the Western money stop? Will it stop before the collapse? Will it stop after the collapse? I mean, the West has a vested interest to continue funding the war in Ukraine. The US specifically. There's a reason why they don't want peace negotiations. I mean, I don't think the West is going to stop funding Ukraine until at least the war ends itself. Who knows? They might fund certain groups after the war. Do you think the Ukrainian side of the front line will hold for another year? Most likely. Do you believe that when Dobropilia falls, Russia will flank Donetsk fortress belt from the western flank? I think they'll try to develop a flank in that direction, but I don't think it'll be an immediate thing because they have to take major towns such as Belozersk, Novodonetsk. How many deaths do you think? How many deaths in total for both sides? I think it's much closer to 1-to-1 than either side wants to admit. My estimates are probably around, I don't know, I think Ukrainian deaths are slightly higher. I don't think they're millions like people claim. I don't think Russian deaths are millions. I'd say they'd be somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 250,000, some 300,000, maybe a bit more. Russia around the same kind of area. Let's see. Opinions on Ukrainian manpower issue and TCC. Manpower is the same as it's always been, really, just slowly getting worse as a result of Russian attrition. It has been alleviated slightly, or the effects of it have been alleviated, or potentially even masked by by the new drone tactics, which has resulted in Ukraine not having to concentrate as much men on the front line. But eventually, I don't think that will be relevant in the future. Will Ukraine be able to hold Zaporizhia after losing Orikhiv? Obviously, the Russians reach Zaporizhia, they'll simply destroy the bridges over the Dnieper River and circle the city. I mean, that's easier said than done. I don't know if the battles for Zaporizhia will actually occur ever. Maybe the war will end before then. Maybe Ukraine will collapse by then. Um, you never know. But I think if Orikhiv falls, it'll put Zaporizhia in significant jeopardy, especially the logistical routes from Novomykolaiivka. But I don't think there'll be like a large mechanized push to Zaporizhia, if that's what you're wondering. Answer Kiwi's question, where is it? How far do you think Russia wanted to advance into Petrovsk towards the end of 2025? Do you believe they intended to just see Pokrovsk as a critical junction or advance even further? Well, obviously they can't just advance on one front, because they'll overextend themselves. They have to do like a meticulous push along all fronts. I think Pokrovsk would have been a goal for them in the, I wouldn't say near future, but at some point, potentially around now, if the counterattacks didn't happen in February. But I do think they did want to establish some sort of, not buffer zone, but control over these key logistical routes for an eventual push further west once they make further gains, like other fronts catch up. Okay, before I finish this off, what I want to do is go over some of these strikes. So as I've been reporting, Russia has been carrying out their large missile strikes on Odessa Oblast, specifically the ports of Chornomorsk, Odessa, Yuzhny, and Reni, although less so, Ismail and Kilia, as well as Mykolaiv, although that port isn't currently in use and hasn't been since 2022. So these attacks came in response to Ukraine strikes on the oil tankers in the Sea of Azov, as I'm sure you all know, and Russia has responded back with several times the force as Ukraine has, using hundreds of missiles of various types, including Ha-59, 69 cruise missiles, Ha-31P anti-radar missiles. They got the Banderol cruise missiles, the S-8000 ones, the very cheap, low-cost ones. We got Garan 2 drones, Garan 4 jet drones, Garan 5 jet drones, all sorts of stuff attacking this region. Even supersonic cruise missiles, the Onyx from Crimea, Iskander ballistics, anything you can think of basically, except for the strategic aviation launch ones, Tu-95 launch ones, I should say. And they've been hitting port infrastructure, energy infrastructure, certain warehouse facilities, mainly port infrastructure, and obviously ships off the coast of Odessa traveling through the former maritime corridor, which Russia no longer adheres to in response to the Ukrainian attacks. Now, this has obviously caused significant damage to Ukraine, far more than Ukraine was able to cause to Russia. They were very few cargo ships are arriving in Odessa Oblast anymore, and these ports are responsible for a large percentage of Ukraine's export. I believe it's like 90% of their grain exports, and I forgot the percentage for their total exports, but it's very high. Very significant changes with this recently. I wouldn't say it's mainly military change. I know the Russian Ministry of Defense claims they carry military equipment. I don't really believe that. I think this is mainly economic pressuring in response to Ukraine's economic pressuring. But obviously this is a major issue for Ukraine, because now they're going to have their economy propped up even more by the West, which is not an easy thing to request. So this has not stopped. It's been going on for around 2 months now, I believe. Maybe almost 2 months, I think. And it's targeted all parts of this coast, and the anti-radar missiles have been forcing Ukrainian radars and air defense systems to operate at a very limited capacity. Sometimes Russia will fly their Su-30 jets out here and not even launch an anti-radar missile, and just keep them there to create the threat that there is a possibility that they could launch an anti-radar missile. Um, and then sometimes, obviously, they do their simulated launch maneuvers with the Su-34s and 35s. So this has continued. It doesn't look like it's stopping, even though Ukraine's so-called 40-day operation against Russian economic capacity has finished. Doesn't look like this is stopping, and it has been very effective for Russia so far. Also, the strikes on Kyiv recently, mainly being carried out opportunistically due to the lack of Patriot interceptor missiles. Russia's had a near 100% impact rate for the last almost 2 months, since the beginning of July. When Ukraine has full Patriot interceptor capacity and is able to fire 2 missiles per Russian ballistic missile, they can generally achieve an interception rate of between 25 and 50%, although sometimes it can be higher, but that's only with fully stocked Patriot systems. And I can say this because I can visually confirm these interceptions through videos sent to me from locals. I finally, over the last couple months, I've been able to achieve the ability to get like full 360 view of the city from various different people from various parts of the city, anonymous sources. But obviously, I can't post most of those videos to, ensure their safety and they aren't arrested by the SPU. So Kyiv strikes are still continuing, mainly military factories being hit. They hit the Antonov factory recently. According to my info, which was eventually confirmed by satellite imagery, the main building, this one here, was partially split in half. The surrounding workshops received significant damage with fires breaking out. This area was reportedly used to produce Lyuty long-range drones, which are used for very long-range strikes on Russia, thousands of kilometers of range. Is Patriot S-400 more effective? I'm actually not sure. We haven't really seen S-400 go up against similar missiles except for ATACMS, and they did achieve a fairly decent interception rate for ATACMS, although I do believe the Iskander is more advanced than the ATACMS missile. So it is kind of, we don't really have a good comparison or a good amount of data. Other areas hit in Kyiv were just general warehouses, logistical warehouses, specifically in Brovary. These areas have been hit quite hard recently. Boryspil was hit, and also, as you saw, a lot of you would have seen the strike on the Ukrainian Special Operation Forces trucks used to launch FP2 mid-range drones at Russia and the occupied Ukrainian territories. So these have been very effective for Russia. I believe it was over 150 missiles launched, but about a 40-day period from a couple weeks ago to the beginning of July. It would have been additional since then, so maybe up to 200 ballistics in the last 2 months. Around that sort of number, don't quote me on it, it's around that number, of which I think it was 7 were intercepted. And I think most of the interceptions were the S-400, modified S-400 missiles, which are much easier to shoot down and have a lower accuracy. Based on your observations, how effective do you think the Patriot and similar air defense systems really are? I get the impression that there are many misconceptions about the actual combat performance. As usual with this sort of stuff, it is more effective than what the Russians say and less effective than what the Ukrainians say. For it to be effective, you need 2 missiles per, 2 interceptors per ballistic missile. Generally, Iskander preferably closer to 3 because it has maneuverable capabilities as it's in its terminal phase. But anyone claiming it's a 0% interception rate is lying to you. Otherwise, Ukraine wouldn't be asking for more. If they don't have sufficient interceptor missiles, they can still shoot them down. But the less missiles they have, the lower the interception rate is, because obviously they'll launch less to try and preserve their remaining stockpiles. But I do truly believe that if Ukraine had a unlimited supply of Patriot missiles, then they would be able to shoot down potentially upwards of 40% of Russian Iskanders. Iskanders are very effective missiles, but Patriots are also a very effective air defense system. And the Ted Postel video, I can just tell you, was incorrect, and I can confirm that because I've visually seen the interception rate with my own eyes. Like I have, by that I mean I have videos of the entire strike from start to finish from multiple different angles, which I have geolocated. That's the level of eyes which I'm talking about. What do you think the approximate frontline will be by the end of the year? I have no idea. I mean, who would have known that Ukrainians counterattacked in Pokrovsk. That was impossible to predict. But in all seriousness, I do think Dobropilly will probably fall by the end of the year, and we'll be seeing battles for Druzhkivka and more intensified fighting for the Limani area if it hasn't fallen already, along with potentially some cross-border incursions in Chernihiv. Bringing up hostile Olivia Ban in my channel chat. Yeah, I've seen that video linked under every single one of my posts of Patriots, and it literally makes me lose my mind. You have no idea how many times I was accused of being a Zionist during the Iran-Israel war because I reported on Iranian missiles being shot down, even though that wasn't even the point of Iranian missiles. It was the point of Iranian missiles was to waste interceptors. Either way, I'm getting distracted. That postal video is completely incorrect, is all I wanted to say. Ignore that. So, can you please give me your shout out? Hudson War Mapping wants a shout out. Go follow Hudson War Mapping on Twitter and Telegram. I forward him all the time. Okay. Kiev, covered that. Ukrainian mid-range strike campaign. You have to ask, but other question, what is better, your house be hit by a 300 Pack 3 missile? Yeah, Patriots have been failing in Kiev. I remember a couple months ago. Sorry, I'm getting distracted again. I saw Willie OEM say that was potentially due to older missiles being delivered. I personally agree. We saw similar stuff with the Middle East when they're using older Patriot missiles, which should have been disposed of, but were sent. The older they get, the higher the failure rate. So I do think that is one of the main reasons. So Ukrainian mid-range strike campaign, obviously targeting Crimea, Zaporizhia, Kherson, Donetsk, Luhansk, and the border regions of Russia, as well as Rostov, Krasnodar Krai. So, as with all of this stuff, I always say this for these sort of campaigns: more effective than what the Russians say, less effective than what the Ukrainians say. The main part of this campaign, which has had the most success for Ukraine, has been strikes on radar systems and air defense, especially radars. Very difficult to produce, very expensive, and difficult to replace in limited quantity. And obviously, they have a knock-on effect for future attacks as it decreases Russia's ability to shoot down drones. Those attacks have significantly slowed down. Magyar did release another video today showing a compilation of strikes on radar systems in Crimea, Krasnodar Krai, and Rostov. And what was I going to say? Those have a much larger effect than strikes on substations or Russian logistics, or military facilities, or aircraft, where a large portion of them are decommissioned, used for spare parts. So that's the main issue for Russia with the mid-range strike campaign. Oil tankers were another issue. That's stopped now, and I don't think any of the tankers were actually destroyed, and most of them were empty at the time, and I believe maritime traffic is most likely resumed through this area. Substations mainly just for economic pressure, pressuring civilians, increasing discontent among public towards Russia. I personally believe Ukraine would have a lot more success if they struck the Iskander-M launchers, especially in Bryansk. Zelensky did imply today that they did that in recent weeks, and I saw some Ukrainian channels claim that, although that's obviously unconfirmed. We have no videos of it, and the Russians haven't confirmed it. The Ukrainians have an increasingly broad definition of a military target. I mean, Russia does too. There is no international law. International law is non-existent. It's never been existent. The US commits war crimes, Israel does, Russia does, Ukraine does. Doesn't make it right, but I mean, in the end, a lot of the non-military targets, which could be classified as war crimes, do have a effect beyond just wanting to hurt civilians. I don't endorse it, but I mean, it is what it is. And international law, liberal rules-based order, that's all. It's never really been an actual thing. It's just a rules for thee but not for me sort of thing. The EU will condemn it if Russia does it, but if the US bombs a school and kills 100 and however many school girls, it's fine, no condemnation. So I mean, it is what it is, really. And also a lot of the war crimes you see are either like from individual units, soldiers making certain decisions, specifically drone operators. I know a lot of Russian strikes the vast majority of claims of Russian war crimes are examples of Russian missiles being shot down, missing their targets, bad intelligence, um, all sorts of things. Air defense missile failing, blast wave from an actual target being hit next to a residential area. I mean, I'm not denying Russia commits war crimes with their missiles and drones, but the vast majority of what you see of strikes on residential buildings are not really what they claim to be. And the same goes for Ukrainian drone strikes on Russia. Most of those aren't actual war crimes. Some are, but the vast majority are just collateral damage or indirect damage. Okay. What are common misconceptions about the front line at the moment? So, I guess the main misconception is the line of contact. There is no such thing as a line of contact in this war anymore. It's a zone of infiltration with both sides holding overlapping and intermingled positions. So I use more generalized terms in this area. Is why I have this infiltration zone overlapping the control zones. Control doesn't necessarily mean consolidation for me. I don't have to map control zones if they aren't consolidated. But I think the main misconception is that there's not a front line which is like World War I style trenches 10 meters apart, with bit by bit advances. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was the changes with Russian missiles and drones. So recently, Russia has halted production of Guran 3 jet drones, as they were kind of a stepping stone from the Guran 2 to the Guran 4. Additionally, they have stopped production of Kinjal hypersonic aero ballistic missiles and the Hard-32 supersonic cruise missile. This is according to Ukrainian intelligence. Obviously, it's unconfirmed, but I personally believe in this. I personally believe this is true. Additionally, Russia has been increasing the production rates of their Iskander-M ballistic missiles, their S-400 modified missiles, the Onyx supersonic cruise missiles, and the Har-101 cruise missiles. Calibers are also being increased in production, although most of them are reportedly being sent to other fleets other than the Black Sea Fleet, most of which will likely go into reserve stockpiles. What else was I going to say? Russia is outpacing their production rates for most of these missiles by up to 10% per missile, sometimes 15%, and are continuing to increase their monthly production goals or yearly production goals each month or year as their production rate increases and as Russia fully cements itself in a war economy. They're focusing specifically on missiles and drones, which will have the most effect in this modern phase of the war. Har-22 supersonic cruise missiles and Kinjal hypersonic aero ballistic missiles have very low accuracy, even though the Har-32 is supposedly an improved one of the 22. Still very low accuracy. I remember when they're trying to hit this substation, the 750 kV substation in Kivoblast, most of them just missed it, even though it's a massive facility. I'm also surprised they aren't stopping production of Onyx, considering they miss quite often as well. However, the Kinjal, as you may know, if you go to Starokostian Air Base in Khmelnytsky Oblast, I don't know if it's visible on Google Maps. I know it's visible on, I think, Yandex, but there's just craters in these fields and near houses. I believe this area here had some craters. A couple of houses here were destroyed because the missile landed like kilometers away from the airbase. So another one which is, slowly being, has stopped production rates and more slowly will start to see less of it. Potentially they'll modernize and upgrade it and then reintroduce a better version of it, as they've done in the past. They did this with the S-300 modified surface-to-surface missile, which they stopped using for the most part from 2022 up until today, and the same for the S-400, which they used. They used it at the Kapustin, I believe it's called, test ground in Astrakhan Oblast, and tried to upgrade its accuracy, which they are now using. Accuracy is still not great, but it is usable, unlike the other missiles which they stopped producing. The Guran 4 very effective, AI guided, and it is operator guided as well. So these drones are used very frequently now, sometimes even more than the Quran 2s in a couple of recent strikes. They're used to strike ships, they're used to strike all sorts of targets, logistics centers, substations, you name it. It's very, very common now. It's possible we'll see it surpass the Quran 2 in usage. Ukraine struggles to intercept these drones a lot more, even by official numbers. A lot of interceptor drones aren't fast enough to shoot them down, and a lot of it comes down to luck. So Ukraine is actively developing new interceptor drones capable of flying at faster speeds, which would be able to shoot down these jet-powered drones. And that's pretty much all of the stuff I wanted to go over in this live stream. If you guys have any more questions, I can answer them now, but shortly I'll probably turn off the live stream. In your opinion, why is the Russian command didn't destroy the bridges in the Dnieper? As I said before, very strong bridges. You need dozens of missiles to destroy them, potentially even more. It's kind of a waste of resources when they could use it on other less valuable but easy to destroy targets, which would have a much larger effect. And also the humanitarian impacts would be very bad. And a lot of the bridges you see are actually hydroelectric power plants. Not this one. I actually forgot. Here. Got one over in Kamyansky, you got another one in Zaporizhia, you got one in Kremenchuk, and you got one in Kiev. And obviously the destroyed one in Novohorovka. So to destroy those, you'd obviously be causing a massive ecological disaster, which is not ideal. So even if they were to destroy all the other bridges, there'd still be routes for Ukraine to use, which are kind of indestructible in that sense. Why are so many Russian cruise missiles being shot down? Ukrainian aviation is very effective, and IRIS-T surface-to-air missile systems placed all throughout southern Ukraine to shoot them down as they enter. F-16s and Mirage 2000s shoot them down over Sumy, Chernihiv, and especially Cherkasy Oblast, and sometimes Kiev Oblast. So they really, I mean, I wouldn't really say they struggle. Russia struggles. It's just more these cruise missiles are cruise missiles. They're slow. They're vulnerable to modern air systems, and the West has donated a lot of these systems to Ukraine. They're not like ballistic missiles where Ukraine can only shoot them down with the Park 3 interceptors. Why is the air defense attrition for Russia so bad? I know the drone program is still far behind, but it's still real. I wouldn't say it's far behind. It's as good, if not better, than Ukraine's. Ukraine's just very good at concealing them, and they're very spread out, and they have time to react, essentially. To what extent is the West behind on adapting to the new age of warfare? Basically everything from drones to frontline infantry tactics. You know, the NATO mechanized military doctrine is not going to work, as we saw with the 2023 counteroffensive. Imagine doing that in 2026. I mean, that is unimaginable. Morale, you know, making people actually have the will to fight. I mean, look at Iran. It's a country, you know, halfway across the world with very low support for it. You know, the propaganda necessary which they used in Vietnam or other wars isn't there because of the lack of significance of mainstream media, rise of alternative media. People just don't buy the same arguments anymore, the same narratives. Boomers will be dead soon, so it'll be even worse. I think we won't see any ability for the West to do major wars like this unless they can successfully reel the people back into these narratives which they want to do, and I think they probably will be able to. They've done it in the past, but don't expect the West to be able to wage large-scale war against any country with like mobilization, because they just don't have the ability to. They don't have the same culture. I think a lot of that's a consequence of like neoliberalism, but it's a whole other topic. Whereas Ukraine and Russia, very different cultures. They've kind of been through the hardships. They have different set of beliefs. They're more loyal to one cause, more patriotic, I suppose. Centralized would be another word. I don't know. Very different scenarios. We're going to see some more North Korean soldiers being deployed to this war. I mean, I would guess so. I mean, it's good for bilateral relations. It's good for training for the North Korean army for modern war. as I've said before, I think the presence of North Korean soldiers is exaggerated by Ukraine specifically because they want to get South Korea to donate them more weapons. And South Korea has like a law which prevents them from donating weapons to countries at war. I believe it might actually be selling weapons too. I'm not sure though. So I think that's one of the main reasons why Ukraine is exaggerating it, because they want to be like, oh look, North Korea is helping Russia, and we have the same enemy, same common enemy of North Korea, so you should help us fight them indirectly. Intel cams waving a hand. Intel cams? I don't see Intel cams in here. With the exception of casualties and small vehicles, I see evidence on Oryx for all the other categories, and they match. How do you question those numbers? I mean, I don't know much about Oryx. I haven't really heard about them much recently. I remember there were allegations of them double counting a lot of Russian losses. I don't really know if there's any good single loss counter. Let's see, what were the other one I saw before? Have you thought of adding areas where both Russian and Ukrainian partisans operate? There's decently sized movement in Ukraine. The movement in Ukraine is mainly limited to intelligence sharing to the Russians, which they get in exchange for money. Not even pro-Russian. It's not even always pro-Russian Ukrainians which do that. It's just people with financial hardships who want quick cash. And a lot of quote-unquote partisan activity, which people will talk about, is just resistance to the TCC. Russian partisan activity is also very limited, even in the occupied territories. It's limited to small attacks on facilities. You don't really see any ambushes, World War II style stuff. So I don't think it's really significant enough to talk about it. Thought on ISW. ISW is a unique case where they are hated by both the Russians and Ukrainians, but not for the reasons why both pro-Russians and pro-Ukrainians hate me. For the reason that the ISW is so wrong. Not even like in a pro-Ukraine sense. I mean, sort of in a pro-Ukraine sense, but their mapping methodology is so flawed. They only rely on open source stuff. They completely. One example is they take any random tiny Russian blogger claim and then try to present it as like the official Russian narrative. They cherry pick data. They present data in ways which is like manipulative. They're one of the worst sources you could physically follow for the source, maybe other than LiveUA map, just because of how terrible their map is. ISW was by far one of the worst, even worse than Deep State. Mobilize all the partners in the North. I agree. Let's see. What was the other one I saw before? Keep missing them. Do you think the Ukraine will decide to fight to the bitter end in fortress cities or simply retreat? I mean, it depends on what you call the fortress cities. I think Sloviansk and Kramatorsk will fall before the war ends. I guess you could consider Pavlohrad a fortress city. It just depends on how negotiations happen and how much funding they're getting from the West, I'd say. Okay, anyway, it is 4:13 AM for me. I need to get some sleep. I'm tired. I haven't slept in a while. My throat hurts from talking for almost 2 hours. Thank you guys all for joining this. This has been great. I would like to do this again at some point. It's been fun. Yeah, it's good to see we've got a lot of people in here. I think we've got like a peak of 240 viewers, which is crazy considering last stream I think it was like averaging between like 80 and 120 or something, so that's great to see. Great to see lots of people in. I guess it's a good time for all my American viewers. What time is it in America? Might be like quite early in the morning actually. European viewers. Good for European viewers though. Anyway, yeah, thank you guys for joining. Thanks for all the support, all the subscribers, all the likes. It's been great. I'm assuming all of you are from Twitter and Telegram, but if for some reason you aren't, go follow me over there. If you're from Twitter, go follow me on Telegram. I can't stand Twitter anymore. It is a horrible app, and they keep shadow banning me every other week and demonetizing my account. I mean, Telegram doesn't pay me either, but I just like Telegram much better, and I have a nice group chat connected to it with over 4,000 people in it, and it's like properly moderated. So if you want any like interesting discussions about the war, join that. You'll hopefully get some there with a splash of schizophrenic takes. But yeah, Telegram is much better. So please, if you're on Twitter, join my Telegram, t.me/amk_mapping. It's linked to my Twitter bio as well in my pinned post. Anyway, thank you all guys. Thank you guys so much all for watching. Hopefully I'll do one at some point. I know I said that last time and it took me 3 months. But maybe even this weekend, like next weekend in a week from now. But yeah, thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you at some point.